Welcome to episode 190 of CXOTalk 190. I am Michael Krigsman, and today on CXOTalk, we are going to speak with we have the Italian debut. We have a gentleman, Gabriele Tubertini, who is the CIO of Coop Italia, which is the largest supermarket brand in Italy. And we're going to be talking about digital transformation in retail and e-commerce. It's a huge topic. Before we start, I want to say a truly heartfelt thank you to Avanade, which is the largest consulting firm in the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem. So Avanade, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. And as always, a hearty thank you and heartfelt thank you to our video streaming partner, Livestream, for all of your support of CXOTalk. So, Gabriele Tubertini, you're the CIO of Coop Italia. How are you?
Hi, Michael. Thank you very much for having invited me to join the talk. I'm really excited, and I can't hide that I'm a little bit nervous of running this talk, but thank you very much, and welcome to everybody who is listening to this talk.
Well, thank you. And the truth is, I get nervous before every single show. But before we start, I hope that there's been such a terrible earthquake in Italy this week, and I wonder whether that has affected you or how that has affected you. Such a horrible tragedy.
No, fortunately, the earthquake didn't affect me directly. It affected a couple of stores of our chain, but even if we haven't been hit directly and personally, it is a real disaster. We are really moved for what has happened down in the center of Italy, and we already started to uh, fundraising operation in our store in order to collect money for the reconstruction, and we hope that the people that are currently without a roof on their head will be soon able to start a new life. It will be difficult because when you live in a place where 268 people die because of an earthquake, it's difficult to start again, but we'll do our best to support them.
And Coop Italia is the largest supermarket brand in Italy. So obviously you have a very significant footprint. So tell us about Coop Italia. Tell us about the size of the company and about the company itself.
Yes, Coop has a very long history. Consider that the foundation of Coop dates back to 1854, even before the Italian state was founded. The first cooperative store was opened in Turin to answer the growing and joint needs of workers to buy wholesale basic commodities such as rice, flour, pasta, soap, and so on, and then to resell them to the members at price cost. A lot of time has passed since, and now Coop operates through a network of over 100 consumer cooperatives on the territory, of which 7 generate more than 90% of the revenue, so 7 are really big company. And the cooperatives are owned by their members, so they're actually owned by the single consumer, are owned by the people. And the number of members has recently reached the quota of 8.4 million. So you can understand that is a really huge movement.
So how is Coop Italia different from other grocery stores? What is the foundation of your strategy or your differentiation?
I'm really glad that you are asking me this question because it allows me to explain a little bit more uh, of our soul, let's say, because Coop Italia really stands out among its competitors, and it is a unique experience in the Italian market. In all these years, Coop has always promoted the consumer campaigns and action for organic products at fair price. We have set up health campaign and fight against the poor nutrition. We've also run several activities for breaking monopolies. on products and services. Think that, for example, drugs in Italy are sold only in authorized store and is still a theoretical monopoly. But we have done a lot to break it, and we have now started to sell drugs, so pharmaceutical products in our store. So we have done a lot of battles in favor of the environment for a lawful trade and the ethics. And Coop private label is probably our products, the line of our private label products is the concrete expression of this action. We promote a sustainable innovation for lifestyle and consumption that are sustainable. We are running educational program in school to increase the consumer awareness in the future generation, and we firmly believe that Italy's territories and the great biodiversity are a social and economic patrimony that Coop can interpret better than our competitors, than multinational companies or other retailers. And we really protect the potential of this huge treasure. Consider that Coop is not as big as Walmart for the people that are attending from US, but we are quite big. As you mentioned, Coop is the largest Italian retail chain. We have a turnover of around 13 billion euros, and that means we have almost 19% of market share. Of course, food and grocery categories are the main part of our business and generate 80% of the revenues, but non-food categories are still important in our hypermarkets, and we have 20% of our business made of non-food categories.
So
yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, so you are a huge company, a very, very large organization, and you are the Chief Information Officer. So please tell us about your role.
Yes, I am the Chief Information Officer in charge for the IT management and the organization. So I also support all the change process. So I look after not only the technical and the IT infrastructure, but also the process changes and the impact on the organization. I started to work in Coop Italia in 2011 after a long career. Unfortunately, I'm quite old. So I started to work 25 years ago in Henderson Consulting, the company that is now Accenture. I spent 10 years with them, and then I covered several CIO roles also in the financial service. I've been a CIO in an insurance company for 5 years, in an English insurance company. But now I work for another big consumer good products producer in Italy, a dairy producer. But as I said, in 2011, I started my career with Coop Italia.
So Coop Italia has $12 billion in revenue, and yes, the retailing environment is changing so dramatically. So when we talk about digital transformation and the impact on retail, what does that actually mean for you and for Coop Italia?
It means a lot, because digital is, how shall I say, digital is rattling the retail landscape in a way, on a number of fronts. And we are here to try to make the right move and to pick up the pieces. So I was reading a research during the holidays, and I was surprised in reading that 88% of the consumer are currently using at least one online channel when searching for merchandise. Of course, we are not talking general, because we should distinguish between food and non-food. But nevertheless, I think that this number is really surprising. So 88% of the people use online tools, online channel when they are performing a search of a product. And the same research said that one sorry, 4 on 10 want even more digital interaction. So the demand for digital is crazy. And I know that I've traveled around Europe, and also I came to the US a couple of times, and I've seen that there are droves of retailers that are really struggling to move and become a multi-channel in order to satisfy this huge demand of digital. But unfortunately, for sure, the customer is going digital. But the question is the profit moving in the same direction? This is a really difficult question to answer, because profit margins are really at stake. Because in order to fulfill the demand for digital service, the consumer demand for digital service, we must invest, we must change our process, and also they expect to pay the product less, and this puts our marginality, our profit at stake. So we should try to really take the action that are really needed and think very well before moving, because otherwise, if we can't reverse this trend, it will be hard to maintain our competitiveness.
So you really have no choice in a sense, because, as you said, 80% of consumers are doing online research. And yet, at the same time, as you said, your profit margins are at stake, which means that you're faced with the intense demand from consumers for a greater digital experience. And so how do you balance your profit margins against changing consumer expectations?
Let's say that if we go a little bit deeper in the details of this discussion, I would say that fortunately, so far as the food categories are concerned, we are for sure experiencing a huge increase in requests for digital services, but this is more focused on information. People want to obtain information of the product characteristics of the products they are buying, and we are starting to see that this request goes far the set of information that are normally provided on the labels that are displayed on the product label. So there are consumers that are happy with reading the label, but there is a growing movement of people that are really interested in knowing everything of what they are eating. So the way of providing information is dramatically changing. Since, as I said, the customer evolved from traditional, so people that are still using traditional tools, for whom a static product label is still enough, to the people that we can call digital savvy, okay? And these kind of people are asking for interactive digital touch points. They are looking for searching tools, web or mobile, better if mobile, to browse among products and eventually finalize their choice. So just to make an example, say that we have a customer interested in buying organic cheese. What they expect nowadays is that they have available, they can use a mobile application to perform a search, and after having displayed on its screen all the cheeses that are in the assortment, then all the cheeses in the assortment that are organic, then they can narrow their search and obtain other information like nutritional facts, calories, percentage of fat, and then they can finalize the reason when they find the product that best fits their needs. So we are not talking about something that is in the world of the fantasy. It's something that is already happening. And they do this all along the customer journey. Sometimes when they are at home, sometimes when they are on the go, and of course, while they are in the shops.
We have a question from Twitter from Arsalan Khan, who's saying that Europe has different privacy regulations than in the US. And so as you're developing customized services for your buyers, for your consumers, how do you manage the privacy issues?
of course, all the tools, all the service that we provide to our customer are 100% compliant to the privacy regulation that is currently in to the European, to the Italian privacy regulation. Of course, the European regulation is slightly different. It's a little bit more narrow, a little more tough than the US one, but there is no difference in reality in the way of managing the private information and the customer. Sorry, I have a problem with my lamp.
Oh, that's okay. So basically, what you're saying is that the privacy is built in. It's simply a fact of
Yes, of
life
course,
and
every
everything.
time that we build a new service, we go through the kind of information that we need from the customer to provide the service, and together with our legal department and with our legal counselor, we put together procedures that are compliant with the law that is enforced in that moment.
So let's go back to the consumer, and you were talking about digitally savvy consumers, and they want greater information about the foods that they're buying. And so what does that mean for Coop Italia? What do those expectations mean for you?
Yes. Of course, this changed expectation for detailed information mean quite a big impact on our internal processes. Because I mentioned before that we are very tough, very strong in private labels. That means that we are a sort of a manufacturer. Okay, so in Coop Italia we design and think and do all the marketing research to define which kind of private label products will go into the stores. Okay, and performing this process. We have completely renovated this internal process that underlies the development of private label products, because we must ensure that all the relevant information that are created throughout the different stages of the process are properly collected and stored, because we have to reuse them later when the customer want to start his experience. Okay, and for doing that, we have developed complex and state-of-the-art digital solution that are both web and mobile to make all these huge assets of information available to our customers, so they can have an easy access and quickly find the answer to the question they have. And we strongly believe in transparency and in the traceability of the food products, as I said before. And just to mention to you and to our audience a practical example, in 2013, leveraging this huge patrimony, we have developed a mobile app called Coop Origins, so Coop Origins, that using the app, the customer simply scanning the barcode with his smartphone could have all the information of the countries of origins of the raw materials, which is not something that we must provide by law. So we must tell to the people, to the consumer, which ingredients are inside the product, but we don't have to tell them from which country the flour is coming from. Okay. And we did this to be completely transparent to them. And of course, we could do that because our internal process of building, of thinking and developing our private label products has been completely reshaped.
So this has very significant implications for how you think about this change in consumer expectations, let me say, has very significant implications for how you think about your processes, but it sounds like it also has a very significant implications for your relationship, not just with the consumer, but with your entire supply chain.
Yes, I would say that from the supply side of the digital transformation, I would say that the digital transformation on the supply side started before to impact on the final consumer. So we have done a lot in the past with our network of suppliers in order to digitalize the full process and to share information with them, to share products, recipes, to select the right certificated producer. So I would say that digital transformation, as we mean with these terms, is more impacting on consumer, at least as far as retail is concerned. So retail business has done a lot in late 90s, early 2000 to streamline the supply chain. So we have leveraged a lot the advent of EDI, of the service-oriented architecture, of web services. So we have done a lot in that direction. So exchange of stock information in order to reduce the risk of stock out, and also to reduce the risk of obsolescence, for example, for electronic products, is something that was started in that years. So nowadays, the impact is just is more on the consumer side. At least this is my humble opinion.
So you had previously put into place programs for efficient electronic exchange of information with your suppliers, which makes all of your digital transformation efforts today much easier. But it sounds like the driver here is the customer journey. Customer expectations have changed, and the customer journey has changed, and therefore Coop Italia has had to change its processes fairly significantly in some areas.
Yes, the customer journey has changed dramatically. In the past, we could compare the customer path to a purchase to a funnel. It used to be linear. The steps were done in sequence. We started with the awareness of the need. Then the customer started to do the evaluation of the alternative based on the tools that he had available. Then he made the selection of the brand of the product he thought it was best for him. Then the purchase, and finally, if he was satisfied, that ended up with loyalty to the brand and also to the retailer, because when a customer was happy with the service provided that he received from a store, usually he became a loyal consumer. Nowadays, the process has been completely changed. So the technology acceleration, with the technology acceleration, the customer journey has become dynamic and continuous. So we see non-stop consumers that, as I said before, are always online. They are when they are on the metro, when they are on the buses, when they are on the train. They keep on checking newsletter from retailers and so on. Sometimes the buzz is even too strong. Sometimes they are confused in receiving so many information. And so these customers have more tools than ever before. And for sure, the ease they have in getting the right advice and reviews and the daily information allow them to compare a huge great number of alternatives. And I would say that one of the things that is at stake is loyalty, because even if somebody was happy of the experience with the product, or with a shop, or with a store, if he finds, if he has tools to make fast research, is not so much interested in loyalty as long as he finds the same products at a lower price or with a better service.
So you said earlier that digital transformation, e-commerce, your margins are at stake, and now you're saying customer loyalty is at stake. And so it sounds like if loyalty and your margins are both at stake, that digital transformation presents some very significant challenges to a retailer.
Yeah, we have to sort out the big conundrum we have, either to stay, to try to keep the business as it is, to be to stay linked to our brick and mortar business, or to be so brave to be the first mover. Consider that coming to Italy, so what I was saying before is, I think, is a general view of the global market. Italy, luckily for us, compared to what I've seen in the US or in UK, for example, we are still a little bit behind schedule. We are at the early stage of the digital wave. So from one side, we are actually ahead of the game in the smartphone penetration, because consider that 70% of our citizens owned one or more smartphones, but they still use it for gaming, for chatting, for social network, and so on. So the use of mobile phones for consumer journey in Italy is still for the digital savvy one. I wouldn't see millennials, Generation X or Generation or before using mobile to perform their selection, their purchasing selection. Nevertheless, as we said, even in Italy, the impact of digital transformation is important and varies significantly according to the product categories we are talking about. Because if we take into account the non-food categories, for example, consumer electronics, home appliances, apparel and clothing, fashion, the change of the purchasing behavior is already at I would say, at an advanced stage. Customer receive email promotion, they look at them, seek information through Google and social network, and so on. And the evolution is already underway. But when we move to the food and grocery, the scenario is different. So the inevitable digital disruption has yet to come. It will come, but we still have some time. Not so much, but some time we do have.
I want to remind everyone that we are talking with Gabriele Tubertini, who is the CIO of Coop Italia, which is the largest supermarket brand in Italy, with annual revenues exceeding $12 billion. And I want to thank Avanade for sponsoring this episode. You guys are great. Thank you for that. And also Livestream for general awesomeness and supplying our video infrastructure. And if you have questions, right now there's a tweet chat going on Twitter with the hashtag CXOTalk. So tweet your questions and we'll try to get them answered. So Gabriele, what about the business model? How is all of this affecting Coop Italia's business model?
To answer to this question, I have to complete the analysis I was doing before. So I was saying that there is difference between non-food categories and food categories. And in fact, we have differentiated our approach to digital transformation. And for food, we are investing and struggling and putting a lot of efforts in collecting and creating the huge databases, huge web service in order to provide all the kind of information the consumer might ask. But in the non-food categories, we have already done more. We already moved, starting from 2013, to the e-commerce. Following the structure of our brand, we have created several portals differentiated by categories and by territory. And of course, to meet that's why I'm making this point before answering your question, because I think that the main change in our internal business process took place when we had to implement and adapt our system and our organization to the management of the non-food e-commerce, the portal, the non-food business on e-commerce. So we set up a team and dedicated tools for content management. That was something we didn't do before. So we have to create all the product information. We have to prepare all the comparison between products functionalities. So we had to create a complete environment for managing the content specific to sell the good on the portal. We have built a real-time service for inventory, because when a customer puts an order online, he must see if the product is available or not. And this is something that can make the success of a purchasing process, of a sales process. And we have created also tools for price optimization, which is something that we also are planning to do in our traditional business, brick-and-mortar business, but for the online business, price optimization tools is something that you must have, because you must be able to change your price every moment during a campaign, during the day, during the weekend, because you must understand where the demand is going. You must understand where the price of our competitor, both online and offline, are moving. You must define which margin you want to obtain by a sale, and you must have a smart and clever calculator that performs this exercise for you, so you can change the price immediately to meet the demand that is in place in that specific very moment. And I think that most of all, the most impactful change concerned our warehouse operation. As Coop Italia, we manage the supply chain for all the non-food categories. So we manage TVs, consumer products, bicycles, apparels, and so on. And our warehouse was organized in order to work by box. So we received order, and the minimum amount of products a store could order was a box. But when you move to e-commerce, you must work by item, and you have a very difficult decision to take. Either you create two separated warehouses, one to fulfill the demand of the store, and another to work on support of the e-commerce business, or you have to try to merge the process together. And this is for sure, from a cost perspective, the most effective way. But you must change the system, you must change the operation, you must change the process, and you have to train the people. So because the same clerk, the same person must be able to prepare an order for a store, and at the same time, let's say 1 hour later, it could be called to prepare an order for the e-commerce business. So that for sure has been the main impact we had when we had to adapt our business model to meet the digital transformation.
And you are looking at expansion abroad, if I am correct.
I'm really happy that you asked me this question, because I'm proud to make an official announcement, let's say, that what we are experiencing is that the consumer love for Italian food is experiencing what I would say is an overwhelming growth in many countries of the world. But the export of made in Italy, of real made in Italy food, is still in its infancy. If you look at the numbers, less than 10% of our production is exported, compared to the number of Italian, supposed Italian products are on the shelves. So there is a huge potential in this sector, in this area. So, and if we combine this global trend with the obsessive attention that we put in the development of our products, and in the careful selection of industrial partners that produce our private label goods, we understand very easily why we have decided to expand our business beyond national borders. And at the end of 2015, we have established the company, a new co called the Coop Italian Food, which has the aim to aggregate its network of over 500 certified and guaranteed manufacturing partners that are able to produce any kind of good to cover all the food and grocery category, and they are able to make this product available to foreign retailers who want to expand their assortments with authentic made in Italy. I don't want to make any complaint or to start any debate, but when we as Italian go abroad, when we visit supermarket in US, in UK, and we see the Parmesan cheese or the pasto, is something that we cannot stand. We are something that really make ourselves a little bit uncomfortable. So Coop Italian Food has already established a commercial relationship with France. Our products are already sold in a big chain in France. We started our business also in China, Dubai, Bulgaria, Japan, and Korea, Cyprus, and so on. And we are approaching the US. We were in Chicago at the FMI exhibition, together with the Avanade guys that you mentioned before, to present our company. And we plan to arrive, to disembark in the US market at the beginning of 2017, if everything goes smooth.
Well, of course, I'm from New York, and of course, in New York, you can get great Italian products and food products. But now I live in Boston, and so we'll be watching to see whether we can start to eventually get these great Italian foods that you're describing. So,
don't you have Italy in Boston? Do you have Italy in Boston or not?
Italy. We have the North End. It's the Italian district, and you
because
can
in New York, as I think you know very well, in front of the Flatiron Building, there is the Italy store.
Yes.
Maybe it could be interesting for our audience to know that the Italy business was started with the participation of Coop. So at the beginning of the story of the company, Coop was one of the main shareholder. So we were part of the company.
Well, Italy in New York, what an incredible place that is.
Yes.
And I tell you what, when you come to New York, you let me know and let me take you for lunch at Italy.
But I will pay the bill in the Italian restaurant.
Oh, I'll
the American one. Okay?
So we have about 10 minutes left, and I know that an important project that you've been working on has been the supermarket of the future that you've been involved with, collaborating with today's show sponsor, Avanade. So please tell us about the supermarket of the future.
Yes, so maybe everybody knows that. I hope that everybody are aware that in 2015, Italy has hosted, Milan has hosted one of the most important events in the last decade for Italy, and that was the EXPO 2015. So the theme of the EXPO was Feed the Planet, Energy for Life, and the aim of the exhibition was to discuss how the food habits are strictly tied up with the global sustainable growth, and how they must change to allow a more balanced redistribution of resources among the world population. And this is a real important topic, because given that the growth of the population is targeted to reach 9 billion people in 2050, we don't have enough resources to feed them all. Even nowadays, a big percentage of the people is underfed, but the problem will only rise with climate change and so on. So when EXPO held the bid to select the official food distribution partner, given that we are the leader in the Italian market, and we are really engaged in the sustainable arena, in the arena of the sustainability, we have decided to participate at the bid. We won, and so we became the official food distribution partner for EXPO. And we were in charge of the construction and operation of one of the EXPO pavilion, the supermarket of the future. And I was the project manager of the initiative. the operation project manager of the initiative. There
So,
was a commercial project manager that was looking after the assortment, the partnership with vendor, and so on. And I was the one in charge for guaranteeing that the pavilion was built in time and was working as designed. The concept, an interesting thing, that the concept of the supermarket of the future was developed and designed by Carlo Ratti, who is the director of the MIT Sensible City Lab, who is considered one of the most influential personalities in the architecture and engineering field. He's an Italian, but he works in the US and is a very famous person. So we teamed up with him and his collaborators with our internal engineering company, IRES. And on the IT side, we choose Avanade and Accenture to be our trusted technology partner. And so we developed this supermarket of the future that I try to be faster since I'm cautious of time, but the concept was based on two main pillars. The first is that in the supermarket of the year 2050, which is the year that we were trying to forecast, the technology will help in lowering the hindrances and the barriers that have characterized the supermarket layout since their beginning. So if you think that today's supermarkets are designed to ensure the maximum efficiency, both for the retailers, we want to display as much SKU as we can in the smallest space possible, and for the customer that want to find all he needs in the shortest time and go back home to have his dinner. And so the shelves are tall and the aisles are narrow. So let's say the socialization that you can have inside the supermarket is really limited. But we think that technology will help in removing this barrier. If we put the warehouse under the sales area, allow you to stock the products very close to where they have to be replenished, so the number of SKU on display on the shelf can be reduced, it can be lower, and the shelf becomes stable, and you reopen the space to the view of the visitor, and the supermarket become like the squares in the Middle Age or the galleries of the 19th century. Okay. And the second pillar was the idea that every product has an accurate and precise story to tell. And so we set up a solution, a very technology-oriented solution that was not using any cumbersome device, so people were not asked to download the mobile application on their smartphone, use their tablets, or put virtual reality glasses, just simply indicating the product on the table with a finger, with suspended screens on top of the table. There were suspended screens on top of the table that were showing all the information related to the products, describing exactly the origins of the raw materials, the impact, the environmental impact of the products. So we were just trying to meet the expectation I was describing before. So the aware customer, the more informed customer wants more information, and we have to provide them to him in the easiest way. I think there's nothing easier than moving your finger towards the product and obtain all the information that you need.
And so this sounds very interesting. So you worked with Avanade to build the concept and to actually create this supermarket at the EXPO.
Exactly. We work with Avanade using Microsoft technology in order to perform the triggering of the finger indication. We use the motion sensing device, the normal Kinect that I think I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience have at their home to make gaming. So we had something like 250 Kinect in 1,500 square meters. In fact, one of our main concerns before opening the pavilion was how can you have so many Kinect working in a so limited space? Because usually you have one Kinect in your house. And it was funny when we asked this question to a Microsoft expert, to an Avanade expert. We asked him, so do you think there will be a problem in testing more the in testing 250 Kinect in the same area. We were at the very beginning of the design, and they said, I don't know, because I've never tried with more. I've never tried with more than one Kinect. So the challenge seemed really tough. So, but everything worked smoothly. So the pavilion was all the experience all the digital interactive experience in the pavilion was working from day one. And I'm glad to say we were really amazed that we received a very important prize, because we won the prize for the best use of technology from the Exhibitor magazine. So that was evaluating the different use of technology inside the different pavilion at the Expo. And trust me, there was a lot of technology for those that didn't visit the exhibition, and we won.
Well, that's amazing. So that was a kind of prototype. And do you think that that prototype that you had created, that you won the prize, will actually be constructed?
Yes, let's say that during the concept design phase, we had a lot of we had to address a lot of issues, but prototyping, testing made ourselves every day more confident that we could make it. And I think that this experience has given to Coop a fantastic opportunity to play with the new concept of store that is not only based on efficiency, but is also based on experience. And the technology, the wonderful technology that Microsoft, Avan, and Accenture allowed us to put in place was really important. But the most important thing was the reaction of the customer, the wow effect. At the beginning, they experienced the so-called wow effect. They were impressed by the ease of obtaining the information. But afterwards, they started to look at the data. So they were not only playing with interactive devices, but they were also interested in understanding what the products had to tell. Okay, and so now we are thinking just to make another announcement here. I'm proud to tell to the audience, that the recreation of the supermarket of the future in the real network, in the real store network, is now a real initiative. Again, together with Avan and Accenture and Microsoft, by the end of the year, we plan to open a brand new store in Milan that will be built on a very similar concept of the one of EXPO. And this store will act as a sort of permanent laboratory where we will use to introduce a new concept. So we'll not stay. We'll start with the concept of EXPO, but in the following years, we plan to introduce a new concept of layouts and new concept of experience and new use of technology. And this is something that we are very proud of.
Wow. Well, that's. I hope when you build it out, I hope that you'll come back to CXOTalk and share your experience with us.
I will be more than happy to do that. And when you will come to visit us in Milan, I will take you to visit our brand new shop.
Okay.
You must come at the beginning of next year, let's say.
Okay, that's a date. Well, everybody, this draws to a close, episode number 190 of CXOTalk. We've been speaking with Gabriele Tubertino, who is the CIO of Coop Italia, the largest supermarket brand in Italy with revenue over $12 billion. Our sponsor for the show has been Avanade, which is the largest consulting organization in the Microsoft Dynamics and Microsoft Technologies ecosystem. And of course, I always want to thank Livestream for their awesome support of CXOTalk. Thank you everybody for listening. Gabriele, thank you to you. And please come back next week and join us again. Bye-bye.